Video games have a knack for pulling some emotions out of our thick, cold hearts, but what games do it better than others? What games really just get at you? Welcome to Chaos Gaming. Today, we're going to be checking out some very depressing video games that hit you right in the feels. Now drop a like, let me know which game got you the most, and as you can probably guess, spoilers ahead. Let's start off with Telltale's The Walking Dead. Now this is a game that really put Telltale on the map. The Walking Dead was released in 2012 as an episodic adventure that took your choices into account. You were the lone person in the middle of a zombie outbreak as he befriends a young girl separated from her family. Sounds familiar, right? You have to keep her safe while figuring out what happened, what to do next, and where her family is. Now, unlike other zombie games from early 2010s, The Walking Dead focused more on the humanity of the situation. You're not some big zombie killing beast. You're an ordinary person stuck with other ordinary people who are just trying to figure out what the heck they're supposed to do next. Most people have a different experience with The Walking Dead, and many people still call it Telltale's best work. Next up, Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. Developed by Starbreeze Studios and published by 505 Games in 2013, Brothers is one of the most emotional games to come out in a long time. You play as two young boys, venturing out into a fantasy world, and you try to find a cure to their father's illness. The gameplay? It's super unique. You're controlling both the boys at once with two thumbsticks in order to complete puzzles and progress the story. And as things move forward, the game dives deep into themes of family, brotherhood, sacrifice. Brothers is a super unique game with a deeply depressing yet beautiful storytelling, and it's definitely worth a playthrough. And since it was released in the Xbox Live Arcade, it's been ported to just about everything, including the Switch, so you shouldn't have any trouble getting a copy of it and giving it a go. Just remember, you're probably going to get sad. Next up, Dark Souls. Now, you may say, what? It made a gigantic impact on the gaming industry thanks to the gameplay, storytelling, world building, and soundtrack, which is probably the most underrated aspect of the entire thing if you ask me. But the story of Dark Souls is what gets the list. Now, it was very indirect with its storytelling. Things open up and become clear as you progress through the game, and the more you learn about it, the more depressing it gets. Dark Souls is all about life, death, and the inevitability of that cycle, as well as the feelings of hope that prolong the next passing. Everybody's experience with Dark Souls is a little different, as it's their interpretation of the themes. But it's a fantastic game, and one that really makes you stare at the wall and think about things. Now let's talk about Papers, Please. Yeah, you ever heard of it? Developed by indie gaming legend Lucas Pope, Papers, Please was released for the PC in 2013 and has one of the most unique premises I've ever seen in a video game. You play as an immigration officer in a dystopian country who has heavy tensions with its neighboring countries. The core gameplay loop has you reading over people's passports and paperwork, deciding who you should let in and who you should turn away, as well as catching spies and criminals trying to sneak into the country. However, things start getting more and more depressing as you learn more about the conflict between the two countries. Somebody may come to you with a tragic story, but without the proper paperwork. Do you let them through and risk getting punished by your country's authoritarian government? Or do you turn them away and possibly ruin their life so you can keep your family safe? Papers, Please is a truly depressing game, and it's one that highlights the tragedies of war that are not often depicted in the media. Next up is a familiar one for everybody, The Last of Us. Actually, The Last of Us Part 2. It was certainly an emotional experience if you've played it. Now, whether you liked it or disliked it, whatever. Released this past year, The Last of Us 2 had you following Ellie after the events of the first game as she seeks revenge for the murder of her adoptive father. Now, throughout the story, we meet tons of characters and see the grim fate of fan favorites. I mean, it got extremely mixed reception due to the great gameplay and the beautiful presentation, but it was a very divisive story. Regardless of whether you loved it or hate it, most people will agree it was a very depressing experience one way or another. At number 4 today, This War of Mine. Released in late 2014 for the PC, This War of Mine is a Polish survival game developed and published by 11-Bit Studios. The game is set during a fictional war in a fictional country, but as opposed to most war games, it's played from the perspective of the civilians caught up in the battle. So it's your responsibility to venture out, find food, supplies, all that good stuff to keep your community safe until the fighting is over, and while this may sound simple at first, it gets progressively harder as resources get thinner, and you have to start making decisions on whose health should take priority in your community. It's actually an incredibly powerful but depressing game about the horrors of war and its effect on everyday people. The game had such an impact that in 2020, the Polish Prime Minister added the game to the recommended reading list in Polish high schools. That's huge. Makes it the first time ever in the entire world that a video game has been added to a public school recommended reading list. At number 3, another indie game, To the Moon. No, we're not talking about stonks or any cryptocurrency. Lots of indie games here. Now, To the Moon was developed and published by Freebird Games in late 2011 for the PC, and it garnered a lot of attention for its great storytelling and presentation. The game has you playing as 2 doctors trying to use technology and artificial memories to give a dying man his final wish of visiting the moon. Now, in order to do this, you go through his entire lifetime of memories in order to create artificial ones that do not conflict with his real life. So as you venture through this strange journey, you learn more about the man and his life, and it all comes together in this sad but beautiful story about life, death, family, and the way we remember it all. To the Moon has since been ported to mobile devices as well as to the Switch, so if you've never experienced it, give it a go. Just make sure you have a box of tissues handy. You will need them. At number 2 today, Limbo. One of the most beloved indie games of all time. Limbo has you playing as a young boy searching for his sister. Now, you're not given a lot of information at first, but the atmosphere and the storytelling makes this game shine. The art style is creepy yet beautiful, and the gameplay is simple yet extremely engaging. Now, since its initial release on the Xbox Live Arcade in 2010, it's been ported to 10 other platforms, and it's currently available on just about anything you can play a video game on. Give it a try. Seriously, it's one of the best examples that I can think of when you hear about video games as an art form. And at number 1 today, Silent Hill 2. We're going to finish things off today with perhaps the greatest horror game ever made. I've mentioned this game so many times. Silent Hill 2 tells the story of James, that's my name, a man called to a strange town called Silent Hill via a letter from his deceased wife. From then on, well, the story becomes this deep and disturbing look into James' subconscious through the use of monsters that all actually represent a part of him. Now, the further you progress, the more you learn about what got James in this predicament and where his life is going. And without spoiling too much, if you want to give it a go, things get heavy. Silent Hill 2 is a fantastic game, but it's unfortunately extremely difficult to play now due to it never getting a proper re-release. We need Silent Hill 2 remastered. I mean, there was an HD remaster, but that version is really, really buggy. We need a new one. If you're going to play Silent Hill 2, you need to either use a PS2 emulator or you need to do the work and track down an original copy, which good luck doing that. But if you can find it and play it, give it a go. It's definitely worth all the trouble. And there you have it, my friends. Those are 10, let's just call it what it is. Super depressing games. Let me know one that didn't make the list that should have made the list, and I'll see you soon.